Guys, I'm back. Part two, part two, part two. I'm sorry, I cut off the last live. The last live, my brain, I couldn't find what I was looking for, and I was so persistent. This is part two. So if you catch up, go back, or if you're back, if you were watching the first part, I'm gonna clip this part and I'm gonna pin it to the top of the chat. Part two. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, let's go. Let's pick up where we left off. Let me share this screen. I got it together. It was driving me crazy. So we were talking about the RICO, right? We had this sealed document. I'm not going back again. We have the sealed document that said that there were multiple defendants. Diddy was the first defendant, and it was sealed so that there were more co-conspiracies. We were talking about the RICO. We talked about the security, Uncle Paulie, D-Rock, the assistant, Capricorn Clark, Roger Barnes, security, Gene Deal, security, Christina Capricorn, assistant, um, George Kaplan, assistant. He was the one buying the medication in his name, Frank Black, whatever, Frank White. And then here Uncle Paulie, Ruben, and D-Rock. That's what he looks like now. So we talked about how Ruben was driving the Escalade when Capricorn went to see Kid Cudi. But right here, this one with Uncle Paulie, I forgot her name. I found her. Nives Gadoni. She was arrested in New York in 2014, May 20th, 2014, and she was deported to Europe because she allegedly, I remember the story, right, was working with Uncle Paulie. She was working at Sony and she met him there. So shout out to Popcorn Planet. Here she is.
Nives Gadoni is the author of The International Madam, How a Woman Controlled a Worldwide Sex Ring. She used to work as an intern at Sony, but then started an escort company, which led to her being introduced to Diddy and his parties. Everything seemed to be fine in that world until she claims Diddy's crew set her up to the feds, causing her 4 years in a New York State prison back in 2012 before being exiled back to Switzerland. She's here now to talk about it all.
Sorry, guys, we're going to skip over the commercial and get this going.
Here. Welcome to the show, Nives. How are you doing?
Hi, Andy. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm great. You got some tea to spill here. I'm so excited to hear about it, guys. This is a wild story, and it puts a whole new perspective on this Diddy story. So I'm grateful for you being here. You're basically going to come in here and acknowledge the fact that Diddy's own team are informants with the feds, which implies that is Diddy himself an informant to the feds? Did they know all along? She's going to drop some serious evidence and tea here, guys, to sort of allude to all of this, which only creates so many more questions I have. But I'm so excited to get through this. So thank you for being here. I want to start with your background. I don't want to avoid that. So you were in the escort business. Can you sort of explain that to the crowd? Sometimes that is people would wag their finger at that. How did you do that? How did you get into that? How did you get away with that? Can you fill us in a bit?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Andy. So I came, in a nutshell, I arrived in the US from Switzerland when I was 20 years old. My original plan was actually selling watches in the Diamond District, which I have done in the beginning. But in the year 2008, there was some financial problems in the United States, as we all know, was a little, financial issues that they had. So the company that I worked for went to Hong Kong, and I decided to stay. Now, with no income and only an internship where you don't really make money from, right? I set up an escort service. What does that mean? It's beautiful, elegant, high-end ladies that go on dates with people that pay for that, for their time, right? What they do with their own time is up to them, between two grown people. Obviously, all my ladies were at least 21 years old, and they did that because they wanted to do that. And they were paid really well and had security. So got into that just to make a little bit as a side hustle, to make a little bit extra money. But it happened within like a year. I had 50 girls working for me internationally. And that went from Europe all over to the States, to Africa, to the Middle East, to Asia as well. And these girls, I'm from Switzerland. I'm half Italian, half Swiss. And in Switzerland, prostitution is legal. So these girls that came actually to the States that I was flying in, they were there on a 3-month visa, the regular tourist visa, and they already knew how to work. And again, they did that on their free will, and made a bunch of money and left the States again. So that's kind of how all that started. And I got into that because my best friend, she was working in one of those escort services. I never personally never did. Obviously, no judgment. But I was really good in managing it, like setting up the times, make sure everyone is on time, kind of coach these girls a little bit how to be a lady, and how to keep it interesting, because looks is one thing, but as well you have to be able to keep a conversation and entertain these gentlemen.
Yeah, and no judgment. I just want the background there because I think also relevant based on some of the charges Diddy's facing. I want you guys to really know her background. And so through that work, that you were then also started an internship at Sony. You met D Rock, which was Biggie's right hand man at the time.
Right.
Also, then connects you to Uncle Paulie, who was head of security, connects you through Diddy. And so that's where all these connections to Diddy and that team happened. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So I met D Rock, just being out and being all at these places where he was as well. And he invited me to some event where I brought my friend with me, and my friend started dating Uncle Paulie at that time, which was the head of security. But that was back at that time. I don't know if he's still working there or not, but he was around for many, many, many years. I think he's pretty much well known in the industry. And so they started dating, and I started to form a friendship with him, more like a brother sister friendship over the years. And that's kind of how we started doing business together. At first, obviously, he did not know about the girls or all my other businesses, because my goal was to be a manager or A&R in the music industry, setting up tours, um, anything like that. That's how I kind of, that was my long-term goal. It was not to be a madam or run escort services. That was just a means to like survive in New York. As you know, it's very expensive there.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so you're figuring that out. That's all happening, and that's when you get into the sort of the Diddy scene, the Diddy parties,
Right.
etc. We have to be careful on some of the keywords we say, but substances were then brought in, and that's when things and women, and then at a certain point, you were asked to bring in certain amount of substances more than you were comfortable with. Correct?
Right, but that was through Uncle Paulie. That was not for the party. So there's a difference between the parties and the studio and so on. That was just small amounts. But then obviously for me, it was not even the interesting part. Like with those substances, it was more like for parties, favors, and for the clients, right? And then
Yep.
if someone asked me for it, I would just give it to them. It was not even about making money. It's just more like getting favors for favors, right?
Wow. So see what she's saying? She's like, she was from Switzerland. She came here. She met D Rock, met Uncle Paulie, met Diddy. They needed rugs. She started bringing some rugs. And it was just a little quantity amount for the studio and the party. But then it got more specific, is what she's saying.
That was more a little
Yes.
bit my way of dealing with it. And since that they were taking a liking into that product, they asked me to just set up, or they just wanted to know who my connect was, right? Which I was not able to give out. And then since he did a lot of favors for me, I kind of felt obligated, being naive. At that time I was 24, obligated to set him up with a bigger amount, which that it kind of was my big mistake.
So they ask you basically to smuggle a huge amount of, like, they want you to now sort of help be a mule in a way and get some of these across. Was it Mexico?
Well, I mean, that was just the first question. Was really, really odd because we used to go to these poker parties up in Harlem, like private parties. And then he asked me one night if I something happened because he invested into something, if I could bring some drugs over the border. And I said, no, hell no, I'm not going to do that. I'm scared. And again, I'm a girl, right? I'm not like a street person or anything, especially at the time. But I just wanted to be down and be the person that they can count on, right? Because they have hooked me up with a lot of things in the industry, with parties, events, with people. So I felt obligated, right? But I declined that. So then a few months later, he asked me, look, I just need product because whoever we were dealing with, that person uh, got caught up or something happened, right? And he's like, I just need that one favor from you. And it was not, he was not involving Puff at all, right? So that was just him and the friend of his that he introduced me to. But he said it was all together, like, how can I say, it's just his group, his affiliates. That's
Yep.
it. Right.
And so he does this, and you then eventually begrudgingly agree to do this smuggling run as a favor.
Right, but no, it was in New York, so I did not go over the border or anything. I just hooked him up with a substantial bigger amount. I was meeting his friends that he introduced me to on an Upper East Side restaurant, like a luxury place. And the second I went in there, he kind of made a comment of like, "Oh, I have the money," which was really loud for the fact that we were there, like a little bit, not to be out there. And that second, the feds stormed the entire restaurant. They took me down into handcuffs. And I was really, again, very naive. I didn't know exactly what was happening. Why was that happening? This is a friend of his. So, and I didn't really understand as well the American system, right? How you can even set somebody up. Because as far as I know, it doesn't work like that in any other country, especially not where I'm from. You can't just do a crime and then set somebody else up so they're doing the time, so I didn't understand that. But what fact is that that guy that said I have the money, if we both got arrested as they claimed, he would have been my co-defendant, but he wasn't because he was an undercover agent. Uncle Paulie never got arrested, right? So that means he collaborated with that undercover agent from
Yeah.
the DPA, right? And after that, when things are kind of like, when I went to Rikers Island, and now I understand what my charges are, and so on and so on. They obviously wanted me to write out who was my connect and who are my clients from the escort service, right? And obviously I didn't talk to them about it. I did not give out any names, so I had to figure out, okay, how can I kind of drop down my time a little bit in that sense, because I was looking at a pretty substantial amount of time. And the good
That was
thing
my
was,
question. Like, what was the sentencing exactly? How do you what are you? You didn't rat people out, from what you've told us, and so you decided not to do any of that. You could have, but
right.
you stood to your ground. How did you get away with a lessened sentence, and what was that process like?
Right, right. So what happened is they made a mistake with the warrant that they have for my house, right? So in the beginning, I was charged with 12 counts of an A1 felony related to drugs, trafficking, and so on and so on. Obviously, sometimes mostly when they charge you, even the feds, they charge you with a lot of things, so something will stick to that because they were not looking for me. They were looking for me to give up my connect. They were looking for me to give out the names, right? So when they went into my house, they had the wrong, I think, apartment number, so everything failed in that sense. They took all my money, so I didn't have money for a lawyer, but I had some money tucked away in Switzerland, so I was able to retain a lawyer, and those lawyers were actually able to clean out a little bit all the mistakes that the feds have done in that arrest, right? I decided not to talk, but obviously a lot of people were afraid of me to talk, and we are talking more about the clients of the escort service. And
So that's her. That's who I was looking for in the last live. That was a good interview. Shout out to Popcorn Planet. So she was arrested in 2012. 2012, guys. So when the Fed's saying they're going back 10, 20 years, they probably was watching him for a long, long, long time. So they're not going to let this guy go. So she was moving rugs and women international. She said all over international. So they didn't even really wanted her. They wanted her connect. So Diddy's hands been dirty for a while. So that's all. I just wanted to jump back on here and say that. Sorry, guys. I'll see you later. I'm going to jump off now. Bye. Have a great day, guys. Who's coming to the trial today? Who's gonna keep testifying? We'll find out later, okay? Sorry about the interruption. I'm sure you will eat some fruits. Later, guys. I'm gonna get up and dance one day for you guys. That'll be funny. I won't be sitting in the chair. I'm actually get up and let it whine. Let it whine. Go, go, whine.